introduce Kristin. I'm so excited that she is going to talk with all of you tonight. And this girl has done some pretty impressive things in the 4 years that she's been with Pampered Chef. So let me tell you a little bit about her. So yes, she lives in Seattle, Washington. She's been with Pampered Chef for 4 years. She started because she wanted everything in the catalog, and it was going to be a very part-time on the side gig. Oh, I hear talking. Is that? I don't know where that was. Did you? I don't know if it was Dawn. Terry, can you mute everybody except for me?
What happened? What happened, buddy?
Yeah, there we go. Thank you. Okay, let's get back to this. All right, so she said she was going to do this very part-time because at the time she was working full-time. She had a 1-year-old at home, and she was even teaching night classes on top of all that, and was involved in very involved into nonprofit organizations. She was actually on the board of directors. So when we always hear everybody that says, I'm too busy to do Pampered Chef, I would say that Kristin was the epitome of that, right? She promoted to director in 6 months after she signed. And then recently, she went from director to executive director in 1 year's time. That's absolutely amazing. Yeah. So she has earned the top 5 in recruiting. She earned that in her 3rd and 4th year of the business. And last year, she earned Circle of Honor, which is the #1 position for developing directors, which that's awesome to do that in her 4th year. She recruited 49 people in 2017, and she promoted 15 directors in her organization last year. So her big, bold, hairy goal is to be the youngest national executive director with a primary virtual team. So that's really impressive. All right, so without further ado, Kristin, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, so thank you, Leslie, for the little introduction. It does seem like I had a slow start to my business because I was working so much like at my day job. And I felt like I was trying to promote directors for a long time and nothing was happening. I was like, I'm preaching this goal of executive director and the needle is not moving. We're not promoting directors. Like, what is going on? And then finally it was like a flood. Like I had been doing all the right things. It just took time to build. And then it all kind of came together. So it did feel like there was a slow start. And then now it's crazy awesome because I was able to quit my full-time job and that allowed me to have a lot more time to spend on my business. So today we're going to talk about recruiting. I know Leslie mentioned this is the recruiting club. So, and I am super passionate about recruiting and helping other people recruit. So I wanted to just take a minute to be thinking about like, why should we be recruiting? I mean, most of you probably understand, realize why, but it really is all about the people that we can help, and it is never about us, and it's never about what it can do for us, but it truly is how can we bless other people. And I firmly believe that when we feel that in our core that we are in fact helping other people, it is very easy for us to share the opportunity. So if you feel like you have a hard time sharing the opportunity of the business of Pampered Chef with people, it could be because you don't feel as strongly tied to how it has blessed you or your family, or how it could bless other people that you're inviting to the opportunity. So how you fix that is you want to make sure that you're recruiting from the heart. And when you recruit from the heart, you genuinely know a decent amount about the people that you're talking to and how you can show them that Pampered Chef could be a good fit for them in a way that is blessing their life. So how do you do that? How do you recruit from the heart in a way that that we see that it could be a blessing to them? And it really is done through asking a lot of really good questions and through listening. So I'm going to walk you through kind of those key things and kind of where it all starts as well. So when you are thinking about your business and your parties, your virtual parties, your in-home shows, I want you to ask yourself, how do I create desire for the business in my parties? Because that is where we're going to recruit from for the most part, unless you're brand new, in which case reach out to your director because they can help you recruit outside of your parties. And you could still recruit outside of your parties, but for the bulk of it, it's parties, right? So how do we create desire for the business in our parties? Well, The first key thing is that we need to be authentic and vulnerable in sharing our story. And even if your story is not my story or Leslie's story, it's okay. It doesn't matter. You still want to craft a story that you feel passionate about, that you can share from the heart with. So if you signed up with Pampered Chef because, and I'm going to give you an example of someone I was talking to on my team today. So it was a lady who signed up because she's a stay-at-home mom, and she felt like she wanted to do something outside of just being a mom, and she wanted to earn extra income for the holidays. So her story is going to be something of her sharing from the heart. Like, I felt like I needed more than just being a mom. I felt like I wasn't contributing completely to the family, even though being a stay-at-home mom is lots of contribution. I wanted to contribute financially. And this gave me the opportunity to do something for myself in a way that I felt like I was contributing and earning extra income for Christmas and being able to provide additional gifts and fun for the holidays for our family. So you want to really craft your story in a way that other people can relate to that. So it doesn't matter if your story is not grandiose. Share why you started, what you're looking forward to, what you're going to use the money for, or what you've been using the money for, how it's blessed and impacted your family. And then that's what you share. And the more you share, the stronger your story will be. The more vulnerable and authentic you are, the more people you'll impact in a way that they want to learn more about it, right? Because then people are going to be like, oh, well, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I could do that too. I want to contribute. Or, oh, I want to earn some extra income for the holidays, so I could do this too potentially and use that for holiday income. So whatever your story is, craft a story, okay? And have it come from the heart and be vulnerable and authentic and be more open than maybe you are currently being open in, how open you are in your parties. And people all the time tell me, well, I just can't get the bookings for my parties, or I can't get the recruit leads. I'm like, well, how vulnerable are you being? How authentic and open are you being in your parties? Like, that makes a huge difference, especially now that there's so much noise on social media. The more open and vulnerable, authentic we are, the more we're going to connect with people. So the other thing I like to talk about, so not only are you sharing your story in your parties, but you also want to share about money. So money talks, and it is very powerful for some people. And when you share your story, you connect with people through the heart. But when you share about money, you connect with them through the head, right? Like, it's just kind of through the head. It's real, tangible stuff. So how I do this, and I do this in both my cooking shows and my virtual parties, is I play a paycheck game. Now, if you guys know anything about me, people will say, oh, well, if I share my paycheck, it's polarizing. Or if I share my paycheck, like, I'll scare people away. And if you know anything about me, I'm the kind of person that I'm like, throw that stuff out the window, throw what you're supposed to do out the window, and do what works and what's impactful. And so that's why I do it, because I've had people say, as soon as I saw your check, I wanted to sign up. So what you could do to utilize this in your parties is consider sharing your paycheck and Leslie's paycheck. And Leslie, I'm putting it out there if hopefully you're willing to share your paycheck. But and I mean, you could even ask me for mine if you really wanted. I don't care sharing. But what you want to do is you want to share a little bit about that check and that person before you reveal how much the check is. So what I like to do is I like to set it up and say something like, okay, we're going to play a game, and it's called like the Guess the Envelope game. I have different envelopes here. One represents someone who does Pampered Chef very part-time. This is my paycheck, and this is a little bit about me, or whatever your story is with Pampered Chef. And then if it's a virtual party, give people the opportunity to guess your check, and you have to put how many hours you put in or how many parties you did. Otherwise, people are going to guess like crazy high numbers. So if you
No.
6 hours. Like Leslie's paycheck. So you could explain how long Leslie's been in the business, what it's done for her and her family, and maybe she's doing this more on like a career time basis. I don't like using the word full time because I don't put full-time hours in. Like I probably put 25 to 30 hours in every week. And so that's kind of full-time, but I think full-time, I think 40 hours. So I'm careful with my word choices. So I say career time. And so they get two pictures. They get the very part-time, then maybe this is a side gig, and then they get the career time and they see like how much potential there is. So that is where you share from the heart with your story, you share from the head with the money, and you bring those two things together and you're going to create a lot of desire for the business. So you want to be doing that in your parties, because then you can go into getting leads for the business. And I like ask if people had an extra $500, if they had an extra $1,000, what they would do with it. So I do this in a post. If it is at a virtual party, like I might say, like, dream a little bit. Like if you had this much extra, what would you do with it? Or if you had 1,000 extra or 9,000 extra a month, what would you do with it? Right. And if it's an in-home show, you could ask them to share, like, hey, if you had this, like, what would that cover out of your monthly budget? So that gives, it starts to connect, and you hear what that could do for other people. And that's the key in asking those things, is if someone says, oh, I'd pay off my student loans, ding, 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 now you know how it could bless them, right? So then when you talk with them, you feel a little bit more authentic when you share, when you're sharing the opportunity from the heart, because then you just see, okay, this could help them pay off their student loans. So then when you are thinking about leads, you have to create the desire, and then you have to give them the opportunity to ask questions, because this is where you're going to find the bulk of your leads. And when they ask questions, it could just be as simple as, here's a chance to ask me any question about the business for a bonus raffle ticket into our drawing or whatever. You can generally tell at a live show who's asking genuine questions and who's just asking for tickets. In a virtual party, you can't really tell because you don't have the emotion and body language and whatever. So, but what I do is at the end of the party, I ask everyone that asked a really good question about the business. At a cooking show, I ask everyone regardless. But at a virtual party, I specifically target the people that ask questions. And so I will say, hey, you had a really great question about the business in Susie Q's Pampered Chef Party. Have you ever thought about doing something like Pampered Chef before? So it just opens the door to conversation, right? So if you never ask, the door is closed. So I always like to say, the business opportunities behind the closed doors. And if you don't ask, to keep the doors open, you will never know. So that's just the opportunity to see if the door will open a little bit. And if it does, if they say, well, I've thought about it, or, well, I saw your paycheck and I'm intrigued, or whatever, then you can start to have that conversation. And if not, you can still have conversation and then ask for a booking, right? So you can still potentially have continued business from that conversation. So that's the one way you can find leads in your parties. The other way is those people that were party rock stars. And some people call this red flags, and I hate that term because it's not a bad thing, and I feel like a red flag is a bad thing. So I call them rock stars. So these are the people that are literally like commenting on almost everything in the party, or at a cooking show, they're like selling the products for you, right? Those are the rock stars. So you have to lead with a compliment when you're reaching out to them, and you definitely have to ask them about the business. And I will say something like, hey, you were such a rock star in Susie Q's Pampered Chef Party. You were commenting on everything. I could tell you were so excited, and it was great to have you in the party. Have you ever thought about doing something like Pampered Chef before? Because I feel like you would be great at it. So I compliment them because they would be amazing, and I ask. Again, you just have to get the conversation started a little bit to see if it goes anywhere. And then this conversation is very much listening and asking questions. So if you are the type of person, and you might not know you're doing this, so you want to go back and study your conversations, but if you're the kind of person that starts to like word vomit or talk about you in these one-on-one conversations, stop. So think about the party as your opportunity to talk about yourself. The party is where you showcase what Pampered Chef has done for you. The one-on-one conversation is not the place to talk about you. It's the place to talk about them, and they talk about them, and you listen and ask questions. So what I mean by that is, let's say you ask a rock star and they say, well, I've thought about it, but I just don't have the time. Some people might say, oh, I totally get that. Well, when I started, I was working 40 hours a week. I had a 1-year-old at home. I was teaching classes at night. I was on boards of directors. Like, I was way too busy too, so I totally get it. that is like the opposite approach you want to take, right? So what I like to say instead is I like to offer a solution to the concern they just shared. The concern was not having time. So what's the solution to that? We all know that you don't have to have a lot of time to do your business. So I will say the great thing about Pampered Chef is you can do as little or as much as you would like. It can come alongside whatever else you have going on in life, and it's super flexible. Okay, so see how I wasn't talking about myself. I was just providing a generic solution to the concern of time, because people will compare, like, well, I can't be like her because of what? I'm not as outgoing as her, or I can't be like her because of XYZ. So we don't want to create this mental comparison thought in these conversations, which is why we don't talk about ourselves. So the idea is that you're going to get a lot of objections, and the people who recruit are great at overcoming objections. The objection's a concern. It's your job to offer the solution. So what else I do with that is I validate the concern. So if they say I don't have a lot of time, I say that's a valid concern. And then I go into offering a solution. So I offer the solution to the concern. And then what I do is I will ask a follow-up question. So this is really key, because when you ask the follow-up question, you have a chance to get to know more about them. So a couple follow-up questions I like to ask are things like, what excites or intrigues you about the idea of potentially doing Pampered Chef? Or if you had an extra $200, $500 a month, what would you do with it? Anything fun? Now, when you ask these two types of questions, you have the chance to get to know them and get to know how the business is going to better their situation. And that is the most important thing you can do, because then you can share from the heart and you genuinely feel better about inviting them to the business, because they might say, well, I could quit my job and stay home with my kids, and I really desire that, and I hate my job. Or they might say, I would use the money to take my kids to Disneyland. One second. Or they might say, whatever. It doesn't matter what they say, but the thing is that you're hearing from them how it could bless them, and then you can utilize that in the conversation. So again, validating the concern, offering a solution, and asking a question. Other questions I like to ask: would your husband or support person or partner and
Kristin, I think we lost you. Oh, there you are. You're back.
what was that?
I said I think we lost you there for a minute, but you're back.
Okay. So did you hear the part about asking the husband?
No, we did not. Can you repeat that?
Yes. So I was going to say, one of the questions I like to ask is, would your husband or support person support you in doing Pampered Chef? And the reason I like to ask that is because that is oftentimes a big objection, and we have to overcome that, right? So I will ask as well, what questions or concerns might your husband have? And then I can work through their objections with them, with the support person's objections, so that they're equipped to go talk to their spouse ahead of time, so that they know the answers to the questions that they think they might ask. So the whole idea is to ask questions, listen, and provide solutions for any concerns that they might have. So I could talk about that for a long time. I could even talk about what to say for every objection you get, but that would take a long time. So that's just kind of the gist of having those conversations. And then what's really important is, and I hate saying this word, is the close, right? So I like to say, wrap it up and put a bow on it instead of the close. So what I mean by that is, if you have a lot of folks who are on the fence with the business, then you maybe need to work on your closing and how strong of a close you have. So when you are having the conversation and it seems like you've asked everything, it seems like you've answered all their questions, here's what you have to say. And there's different ways you can say it, but here's how I say it. I will say, do you have any further questions, or are you ready to go ahead and get your kit and sign up today? Like, it's as simple as that. So if you have fence sitters, your close is not strong enough. And I will tell you that if they still have objections, they will tell you, oh, I still need to think about it. Or, oh, I'm not quite ready yet. And in those cases, ask more questions. Things like, oh, I understand. What do you feel is your biggest hesitation? Or what do you feel your main concern is right now that's holding you back? Anything like that. Just continue asking questions. You never want to leave the conversation with, well, let me think about it, or I'll get back to you. You just keep asking questions, because they will generally keep answering if you built that relationship and connection with them. And then you can get to the bottom of their concern, and then you can ask again, are you ready to go ahead and order your kit, and we can run a kickoff party for you next week? I oftentimes also like to say, and we can run a kickoff party for you. We can run your first party next week, whatever. And you can have a paycheck literally on September 7th. So I give the dates by when they could have a paycheck, because then it makes it real. Like, oh, if I do a kickoff party next week, she's telling me I could have a paycheck on September 7th. That would be awesome. I need the money. So sometimes using those dates with a paycheck and stuff is helpful too. So I could also talk more about how to ask your host about the business, but the key thing that I will say in regards to recruiting your host is that most of the people I recruit are my hosts, and I would say 85% of them say no to the business the first and second time I ask them about it. So if you are giving up by like the second time that you're asking your host, then you're probably not asking enough times, because most of them say no, and I develop the relationship with them over the party. I get to know them, I listen, I ask questions, and that helps me in having the recruiting conversation again later on in their hosting journey. So the other thing is, when you ask 5 times, your ask, the first ask is before the party, should be before the party, and the second ask should be in the middle of the party, give or take. The third ask towards the end of the party, and the fourth and fifth ask at the end of the party. And sometimes my fifth ask is after the party is closed. And what I mean by that is, if I continue to get bookings off their party, or if I close the party and then I get another booking, even if it's just one, I will say, oh my gosh, I got another booking off your party. Are you sure you don't want to give it a shot and just see what happens? And I've signed many hosts even after the party is closed. So if you have those bookings still coming in, use that as leverage to offer to them again. So, and that fourth time before you close the party, some good word choices for that are things like, if they've already said no 3 times, I just want to make sure before we close your party that you're sure you don't want to use the kit coupon that's available on the table for you. Or are you sure you don't want to take these bookings that are available on the table for you? So I work really hard to at least be able to offer the kit coupon or the bookings, because then I have something to offer them. And I usually have one or both to offer by the end if we're doing our job, right? If we're doing a good job host coaching, we should have that lined up. So I wanted to leave you guys with a brief little how to promote to director this month. So the key thing whenever I'm working with anyone to promote to director is to make sure you have a solid show schedule, which most of you probably do. Or if you are a director and you have people that you're working with to promote to director, make sure they have a solid show schedule, and you should know their show schedule. So you should, if you are working to promote, your director needs your show schedule. If you're working with someone, you need their show schedule. So that's the first thing. And then making sure you ask your host 5 times and working with your upline on what your hosts are saying, what your leads are saying, send them screenshots. Like, you can't, if you're newer especially, or if you're not a skilled recruiter, you can't expect to get better unless you're leaning on your upline or your director to teach you how to recruit, because it takes time and skill. Like, very few people are naturals at recruiting. You have to develop the skill and the art of the conversation to become good at it. So lean on your director, let them help you recruit people. And if you are a director working to promote others, you should be like partnered at the hip with the people that you're working with. And you should know every party they have, what every single host has said about the business, what every single lead they have from the business. And it's not like if there were leads from the business, from their party, who were the leads from the party? Not if they asked the host about the kick coupon, but what did the host say when you offered the kick coupon? So it's really just making sure that all those kind of things are in place. And then how are those conversations developing? So for those of you who might be working to promote this month, it is never too late. I always say if you have some parties on the books, one of the best ways to get a last minute recruit or two is to offer the party to your host. So if you have a host that has a $200, $400, $500 party, whatever, you could offer to give them the party and the commission, and they would get a kit. You would offer them the orders, and then they're automatically active. So I don't suggest doing that all the time because you don't want to be giving away commission. However, if you're getting close to promoting and you just need one or two more people, all you have to do is convert 2 parties to kickoff parties, and you have 2 active, team members right off the bat. So there's lots of things I could talk about that as well, but I wanted to open up to questions. I know Leslie and I had talked a little bit before this, and I was like, gosh, that's a lot of stuff to try and squeeze into a short call because there's so many ways I could expand on different things. So who has questions?
Don't be shy. Ask this expert here.
So I've got like 50, but I'm not going to ask all of them like on this call. So you kind of just touched on what I feel like I struggle with, and it's always just like a constant struggle is I feel like 90% of the time I recruit too, because recruiting is, I love it. I can talk about it all day just like you, but I'm recruiting my host, I'm giving them their parties, and then like, so then my show schedule is kind of like, oh my gosh, I was kind of like, I pride myself on getting shows from each party to, be my next month or a month after. So when you're recruiting your host at that rate, like you're saying what, like 80%. So how are you supplementing the next month? I mean, it's a hard question.
No, it makes total sense. So thankfully, I'm not recruiting 80% of my hosts, but 80% of them say no to the business the first 2 times I ask them. So I always buffer my bookings with a lot extra because I always anticipate that I'm going to give away X amount of bookings, right? So I know if I want to recruit 7 people a month, I might be giving away 14 bookings. So I want to have potentially an extra 10 to 14 bookings to make sure that I have enough. Now, if you want to recruit a month, that's 4 parties. So you want to book an extra 4 parties to make sure that the 4 are still fine, right? And if you it's maybe you have to hustle and have a great paycheck, right? So just overbook as best you can.
Yeah. Okay.
Kristin, there's a lot of information on how to overcome the objections on PC University, but with all your vast experience, do you have a spreadsheet that you use to train your team members on if you get this objection, this is the response I recommend?
Yeah, actually, I typed up an entire Word document, and I even asked, I put it out there, I was like, okay guys, give me every objection that you get, every objection in the books, and I wrote them all out on the Word document, and I wrote my responses for what I would say to those objections. So I can share that with Leslie, and she can share with you guys.
Thank you. That'd be great.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions for her?
I have a question. When you're talking about, can you hear me or am I alien?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. When you're talking about talking with your host and it's virtual, are you talking on the phone or is this all through Facebook Messenger, texting, or?
So whether it's virtual or cooking, I always do at least one over the phone call with my host. And so to start the conversation about their party and the party details, I do that with a phone call. So I book the party, I ask for their wish list, I do some of that, and then I get them on the phone like a week and a half before their party starts. And that's for virtual parties. If it's a cooking show, I'm on the phone with them earlier than that. But that's the first time I ask is on that phone call. And I will tell you guys, the first 2 years of my business, I did not do a single host coaching phone call. It was all over Facebook message. And the 1 month I said, I'm going to do a host coaching call with every host this month, just one. And I was scared to get on the phone. I hated talking on the phone. And then that month I doubled my recruiting, and I recruited 4 that month. I never recruited more than 2. And then my sales went from 5,000 a month in sales, and I had over 6,000 in sales that month. So I contribute a lot of that to the phone call.
Here's my question, Kristin. You had said something about playing the envelope game, and you did it in your virtual parties. Do you go live to do that?
No, so it's actually just a post in the virtual party itself. So I just find a dollar, you can find images like $100 bills or envelopes or whatever. Just plug an image in. But it basically is okay, time to play a game. We're going to play the envelope game. Guess how much money you think is in this envelope. This envelope represents a paycheck, one of my paychecks, or this represents my director Leslie's paycheck. And then I share, okay, here's a little bit about this month that you're guessing. I did 6 hours of work this month. I did 2 virtual parties or whatever. So you lead them in with tips and hints, and then let them guess. And then I say, guess how much you think is in this envelope, and the person closest gets a raffle ticket into our drawing. So that's how I use that, and I make it a game.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have another question. I know before you and I kind of chatted on Facebook, what are you doing your virtual parties on now? Are you using another platform, or are you doing groups or events?
So I'm still using Facebook, and I'm doing groups now so that I can schedule my posts. Yeah. And yeah.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. Anybody else have one more, or we'll take 1 or 2 more, because then we need to let her go. We kept her on longer than we had planned.
I'm sorry I had to transition to my car partway through too, but.
Oh, that's all right. We started a little late too. So anybody else have a question for her while we have her on? Nope. Well, I just want to say, amazing. Wonderful, wonderful information. Really good. I mean, you just gave us really good, sound, detailed advice. I took 3 pages of notes. Yes, but I love the whole thing about when she shared about being authentic and vulnerable. Share your story, share from the heart. That's huge. My internet's unstable, so if I'm getting in and out, I'm sorry. I love about sharing the money. That's something I've gone back and forth with, and I stopped doing, but I love that. We actually had an envelope game. Do you remember that, Terry? We were trying to figure out how to do it about 3 years ago with Share the Money with the envelope game, and we kind of pooped it. Now we need to bring that back. Love that. Love career time instead of full time. That was awesome. I mean, I could go on and on. So really, really great call. Kristin, thank you so much. Thank you for giving us your time. And and
I'll add one more thing.
Okay, go ahead.
That I've had a lot of people ask me questions since conference, and I want to help, I want to help folks, but private messaging is hard because I get so many, and I want to help my team and further our business too. So I actually started kind of podcast video trainings on my YouTube. So I'm going to be releasing trainings on a weekly basis on YouTube. So if you want to go follow me on YouTube and subscribe to my channel, it's free, and I'll just be picking a topic every week and doing a 10 to 20 minute training on it. So if you want more, that's a good way to plug in as well.
That is awesome, and thank you for offering that to us. And yeah, so if you give me that information, I'll post it on our team page, and then those of you that want to subscribe to her YouTube channel could absolutely do that and learn more. from a pro here. Amazing, amazing, amazing. So way to go, Kristin. We wish you all the best this year. I know you're going to hit your major goal there. There's no doubt about it. That's for sure. So, all right. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks again, Kristin.
Bye.
Have fun at the fair.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.